Honorable Minister of Justice, Shakantu, Excellencies, friends from the private sector, friends from civil society, esteemed UN colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored and privileged to welcome you all here today to commemorate Human Rights Day when the Universal Declaration was signed. Article 1 states that all human beings are created equal in dignity and rights. So today we come together to celebrate each other as human beings. Without further ado, I would like to invite the United Nations Resident Coordinator, George Washira, to deliver some opening remarks. Thank you. Siyabonga.
Some years ago, before I joined the United Nations, I used to have this nightmare that I would stand up and speak after a colleague of mine who had this booming voice, and I was always competing. And here I am again, having to match the energy from my colleague and senior human rights advisor, Leila. So thank you very much, Leila. Now, Honorable Minister of Justice, Mr. Polele Shakantu, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the private sector, civil society, human rights defenders, colleagues from United Nations, everyone, Sanibonani Nonke. Good to be here. Good to see all of you this morning. Welcome. When I woke up this morning, I looked out and I said to myself, it's a beautiful day. And in my notes, I was going to say what a sunny day today is. Little did I know that within just a few minutes, the weather would change tremendously. But we always look to the bright side of things. We do hope at some point the sun will show its face and who will finally enjoy the summer in Pambani. Now, my remarks this morning are going to be very brief. This is not an advertisement for the Times of Eswatini, but my remarks in full are going to be published on Saturday in the Times of Eswatini. And I think I will save us a lot of time so that we can get to hear a lot of us if I do not spend too much time making my remarks this morning. But having said that, why are we here? Leila has already started us on in terms of why we're here. We're here to commemorate the International Human Rights Day. It's an important day in our calendar. It's an important day in the calendar of the United Nations. It should be on the 10th of December, but we have the leeway to celebrate it anytime, any period within that range of time. Now, we're also here, not just marking the International Human Rights Day, but also celebrating the 75th anniversary of this important document. It is a document, it's a declaration that has become more or less our moral compass. This is where we go to look at our values as humanity, right? In terms of those humanity values that we all must propagate: freedom, justice, dignity, equality for all. And those values and the declaration itself have become the basis for a lot of what we have in our national laws, in our international standards and statutes and covenants and treaties. So it's an important declaration. It's also the basis today for our Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. As we celebrate the 75th anniversary, we are also here to launch what is going to be a year-long commemoration, celebration, that will culminate This time next year, around the 10th of December, and during this period, we are going to be doing three things. One, educating ourselves on this particular document, the declaration, right? Reminding ourselves of why we put it together in the first place, why it is relevant, what changes has it made in an impact has it made in our lives. Number two, we still have work to do. So we are going to be promoting a change of attitude, because still in many parts of our world, within our societies, there are people that have still not fully accepted the indivisibility, the universality of human rights, regardless of age, gender, identity, faith, sexual orientation, all the differences that we have. We still have to continue to promote that change of attitude. We also have to continue empowering people, ourselves, in order to be able to stand up and continuously claim the rights that are entitled to us. I want to applaud you, Honorable Minister, and the government for the ongoing efforts and all the progress that we have made here in the Kingdom of Eswatini in terms of the promotion and defense of human rights. We want to commend the continued participation of the Kingdom within the Universal Periodic Review process and the implementation of the recommendations that have emanated from there. We want to commend you on the achievements around the Sexual Offenses and Domestic Violence Act. We want to commend the election of women to the House of Assembly. We want to commend you. I know you were here when we were reviewing the marriage and matrimonial property bills, a major milestone as well that continues to promote the rights, particularly of women. We want to commend you and encourage you to continue on that journey, because we'll need every one of us. And that's why we have all these people in the room, from government to the private sector, international partners. I even see we have a child here, so that we can remind ourselves that human rights is everybody's business, and it's going to take every one of us to take this forward. Two key messages for me. Number one, I do believe that we need to continue particularly promoting the rights of women. Within this period, we are celebrating what we call the 16 days of activism. That was launched here, I think 2 weeks ago now. Now, we need to do more. Everywhere in our world, our women are suffering, mostly at the hands of men, at the hands of institutions that have not adjusted to the rights, recognizing every aspect of our society, including our women. So I think we need to do more to promote the rights of our women, end discrimination, end violence, including in the domestic violence, so that we can indeed say we are protecting the rights of every one of us. Number two, we need to continuously recognize human rights as a key pillar in our prevention agenda. We all know that whenever humanity's values of freedom, justice, and equality have been abandoned, that has been a risk moment. That's when we have gone wrong. So we need to continue in this direction of recognizing that human rights is a key pillar in terms of our prevention agenda. Now, 2 years ago, when we were celebrating the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, now we are at 77, but 2 years ago, we were doing 75 years. Our Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, issued a report that he calls our common agenda. Amongst the key ideas is how we need to continuously review, remind ourselves of the social contract between the governed and the governors, constantly review that, build trust between us as institutions of government and the citizens, so that we protect the social contract and continue to deepen social cohesion and stability in our societies, because it's when we lose our stability that we enter the risky area of deep human rights violations. So with those remarks, I first of all to recognize today we are going to be focusing a little bit more on Article 26, right to education, but it's also a broad conversation. And I want to thank again the government for the huge investments with regard to education, including through the free primary education, and that we cannot underestimate the impact of that huge investment that the government is making in terms of bringing up our children and the next generation. We, of course, need to do more. We had a summit earlier this year, the Transforming Education Summit, that has come up with recommendations about how we need to focus a lot in terms of enhancing our education for our young kids so that we can make sure that we are preparing our children to take on the burdens of the next generation. And we have messed up our world in a great way from our climate crisis, inequalities, and so on. We need to be fair to our children so that when we hand over this to them, we are giving them a fair chance, hopefully, to correct that which we have messed up. Thank you all. Welcome. And now it's my honor to welcome the Honorable Minister of Justice to deliver her remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the UN resident coordinator, Mr. George Wachira. I would like to greet the members of civil society present here, members of the private sector, government, the UN family, ladies and gentlemen, a very good, warm, yeah, it is a warm morning in Mbabane. Thank you very much, RC, for your remarks. And as the Ministry of Justice, we are grateful to be part of this important day and year, as you've rightly pointed out, that it will be a year-long commemoration of human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're gathered to honor the adoption and the proclamation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the General Assembly on the 10th of December in 1948. As we all know, gathered here, I take most of you are human rights protectors and human rights activists and key players in the human rights space. This declaration articulates in one document the fundamental rights and freedoms for all, that they are to be universally protected. The declaration creates a common standard for all people and affirms the dignity and worth of all people, that all nations and their people should seek to achieve. Your Excellency, it is not surprising that to date, I've learned that the declaration has been translated to over 500 languages. So that is not surprising because it is indeed a landmark document in the history of human rights. The declaration has inspired and paved the way for the adoption of other human rights treaties at global, regional level, and also national level. 20 years later, in 1966, the declaration was followed by two binding covenants, the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and also the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. The Kingdom of Eswatini has embraced the Universal Declaration on Human Rights by ratifying these two main international covenants on civil and political rights, the ICCPR, and also the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. And the country has also domesticated other covenants like the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment of punishment, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kingdom has not only ratified these conventions, but the country has continued to put in place legislative, administrative, and other measures to give effect to these rights and freedoms recognized and guaranteed by these instruments. Indeed, Eswatini is making strides in giving effect to our human rights obligations and commitments. Pertaining to the theme for today, which is the right to education in the context of Article 26 of the Declaration, as His Excellency the RC has pointed out, His Majesty's government has placed education as an integral pillar for economic development of this country. By promoting and protecting the rights of education, it is of paramount importance for our country that we continuously promote this important right to education. The country has made remarkable progress in providing free education, as we all know, and also making education generally accessible to all citizens of Eswatini. Despite these milestones, there's still a lot of room for improvement. And that is why we are gathered here today, and we will have the year-long commemoration and promotion of Article 26. There are still a lot of gaps that we need to fill in the area of the promotion of the right to education. As Article 26 points out, education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality. That's one of the provisions of Article 26. It says that education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality, meaning that one of the most important objectives of education is to prepare our young people for responsible citizenship, for work, and also to equip them with the right skills so that they live a satisfactory personal life. So this is one of the key objectives that I believe we as Eswatini still have a lot of room to improve on, especially when it comes to the education of our young people. Our education system can also look more deeply into the development of the whole person by harnessing individual potentialities, providing education on cultural heritage so that we give our young people a sense of belonging. We can also use modern technologies to develop the character of our young people and also inculcate values that will empower our young people to be good citizens. When it's time for young people to assume adult roles in society, they must be properly equipped with all the skills to be economically sufficient, socially dependable, politically insightful, and also they must be able to think constructively about the future. So that is one of the responsibilities that we have collectively as citizens. Education is not the sole responsibility of teachers and the governments. Parents also have an important role to play in ensuring that young people are given a balanced education that will equip them to be responsible citizens tomorrow. Article 26 further provides that parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. So parents also have an important role to play in the education of their children. And in the African context, parent is broader. It's not just mother, father, biological, but parent is us, all of us as a community. We have that responsibility to ensure that our young people are properly equipped to be able to be better citizens of this country. There are also clear gaps, Your Excellency, in the understanding of human rights in the country in general. The fundamental document, which is the supreme law of the land and enshrines the Bill of Rights, which is our constitution, is not known to many. Therefore, there is a need for us to invest more effort in educating eMaSwati on their rights, and most importantly, also on their responsibilities. I do think that it is time we consider including in our curriculum some of these important legislation that are the core of our social cohesion. I believe if we better understand our legislative framework, our history, and who we are as eMaSwati, then we'll be in a better position to come up with more peaceful resolution in addressing our differences. Thank you. Your Excellency, may I reaffirm His Majesty's government's commitment towards the realization and enjoyment of the fundamental rights and freedoms of all people living in Eswatini. And this commitment cannot be realized without the involvement and collaboration with key stakeholders, including the UN country team, our development partners, non-governmental organizations, civil society, the Commission on Human Rights, and other stakeholders. In particular, Your Excellency, may I take this time just to extend His Majesty's government's appreciation to UN Eswatini. Your continuous support to government in advancing human rights for all, in particular women, children, persons with disability, and other sectors of society. I may not be able to or have the time to count because there's so much that the UN has done together with other development partners in assisting us as a government in our journey to improve the life of eMaSwati. I'd just like to mention a few. We'd like to thank you, Your Excellency, and UN Eswatini for providing the education sector during the COVID pandemic by ensuring continuity in learning for our children. This also included other interventions that were invested towards assisting eMaSwati to economically recover from the impact of the pandemic. I also know that several UN agencies, in collaboration with government and other partners, have also put in a lot of investment in helping His Majesty's government to recover with regard to the shock of the current impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The UN has also supported the country in the efforts to not only domesticate the international conventions, which I have listed, but also to systematically monitor, report, and follow up on the recommendations from our human rights mechanisms. That is the support that you've given to the Ministry of Justice. You've also supported us in the legislative review process and the national mechanism for follow-up, the NMRF, which follows up on our country obligations on the human rights conventions that I have listed. I'm also aware that the UN has supported the Commission on Human Rights to provide human rights education, not only to children at schools during the build-up to this year's Human Rights Day, but also in training of other duty bearers, including the police, correctional services, and other government officials, and in communities as well. So I'd like to extend our sincere appreciation, Your Excellency, to UN Eswatini. You have been indeed an integral partner in our journey to advance human rights in Eswatini. And we thank you for the support that you've given us. I would have liked a very strong round of applause to thank you. And we don't take this investment lightly, Your Excellency. We wouldn't be here as the kingdom if it wasn't for your support, in particular in the advancement of human rights in the kingdom. As I conclude, Your Excellency, as we commemorate Human Rights Day, let us remember that education as a human right, in terms of Article 26 of the Declaration on Human Rights, is not the sole responsibility of government to deliver. It is the responsibility of all of us as citizens working together to create a conducive environment for all citizens to receive a quality education. It is also the responsibility of citizens, all of us, to receive the education that is provided and also to respect the rights of others. I believe, Your Excellency, with the roundtable that the UN has put together for us today, it is one way of strengthening that collaboration for all of us. With that, may I say thank you very much, and may we have a great roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for those inspiring words. We now call upon and invite Phagame Shili from the Commission for Human Rights and Public Administration. Phagame, apologies, pronounced your name wrong. He will be introducing the video that was produced by the UN in collaboration with the Commission for Human Rights and UNICEF. It's an amateur video, so bear with us, but it's voices of children. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, I am Phagama Shili. Yes, I work with the Human Rights Commission. I am a human rights investigator, but I also do capacity building. So this project briefly that was as introduced by Leila, it was a partnership with the Ministry of Education and supported by UNICEF. It focused on strengthening the capacity of learners in schools on their human rights, but most importantly, to make them appreciate that rights have responsibilities. So the program was rolled out from the first week of November to the last week of December, and we managed to reach out to 23 schools. The schools also included special schools, which is schools that cater for learners with various forms of disabilities, and also Vulamasango, which is a juvenile school. We were able to interact with the learners, and we also got to learn more that actually the children have information. They experience various forms of violations, but also there's a lot that they are doing within their small spaces to stand up for human rights. So today we will hear from them. We unfortunately could not manage to have them come here because ideally it would have been nice to have them present in this very important event. But because this event is happening during exams time, so we could not have them come. But today we will hear only from learners from Nhlambeni Nazarene Primary School, which is in Manzini, and a learner from Egwetsembeni School, which is a special school in here in Mbabane, in the whole region. So I think without a further waste of time, Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, can I invite you to watch and listen to the children, and also express that the commission will be having a similar event on Friday at Sibayeni Lodge, where most of the children will be present to actually interact and express their views with the various stakeholders. So can I ask that the program director plays the video? So with this few, can I thank you, and hoping that we will learn and be able to make interventions from the video. Thank you. I ask that the program director plays the video. So with this few, I thank you, and hoping that we will learn and be able to make interventions from it.
Sibangana basekwethembeni sicela bo-ali labangasita othishela uma kukhona umntwana nontolele. Lokunye sicela asisike emakhonweni nasesinaso ubambe imali ethembeni sicela bo-ali kalela emabhizinisi labangasita nalabushela bakhona umntwana
Ubheka enta kubhekwa emalungelo. Ushona enzasi kukhulunywa ngemalungelo. Kanti yini emalungelo? Kanti akhetha abantu yini emalungelo? Aya ngokubili yini emalungelo? Tshelani mina, mavuno nobe masikade. Suke sekonde njani lapho lomunye sekagangaza ngemuva. Ngabe kusuke sekuvele lapho lomunye sekangalaphile kanti ngabe kusuke sekonde njani sekugcina. Kanti yini emalungelo? Kanti akhetha abantu. Kunebantu labacabanga emalungelo akubona. Lalelani wonke umuntu unelungelo lokufunda. Wonke umuntu unelungelo lokufunda. Wonke umuntu unelungelo lokuphila aphile emhlabeni. Baswadamanga abangenziwa abantu emalungelo abanganyanzelwa emalungelo abantu. Mina njengengqondo nginelungelo lokufunda nelokufundiswa. Ngalokufanayo ngokusekelwe esikoleni imbazakanye ngokuphelele esikoleni ngizoqhubeka. Everyone has rights. Everyone has to be respected. Everyone has rights to be protected. Everyone has responsibilities attached to the right. Now, okay, who be
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. The video, as you can see, is a work in progress. I'd like to now invite Linda, who needs no introduction, now with the UNDP, but formerly with the Commission for Human Rights and Public Administration, to take the floor. She will be moderating the discussions. Thank you.
I clearly have very good support structure because the kind of encouragement I got as I was going up is quite huge. Thank you very much, Leila. I'm convinced, Your Excellency and Honorable Minister, that I don't think so far there's anybody with as much energy as Leila. I always thought I was loud and I had all of the energy, but after meeting Leila, I had to up my game 3 times and I'm still not even there. So my job is not a very easy one because I'm the person that cuts people from saying something. But it's just to open up for discussion. And I think we've had the tone that has been set by His Excellency and the Honorable Minister. Maybe I'm creating, I just said the Prime Minister and the Honorable Minister in terms of their remarks. So I'm going to open up the floor. And because we all want to have an opportunity to say something, it would be nice if we keep it to, I know we have a lot when it comes to human rights, right? Because, I mean, there's so much going on. Do we need this light? Because I tend to move around a lot, so I come to the light once in a while. So without further ado, who wants to be the first to say something? You want to be the first, Julie? Of course, he wants to be the first. The Commission on Human Rights didn't have enough chance, ladies and gentlemen, so we'll give them an extra time to say more.
Thank you, Program Director. It's not necessarily, it's just want to speak to the video because of the technical glitch. I'm sure you might have missed a lot that the children were saying. So the children from Hlambeni Nazarene School, they actually impressed how the knowledge that they received from the project has been useful to them and how they're going to use that knowledge to empower other children and make sure that they support other children who are victims of violence within their communities and school to report. And the second, Lena, who's from Ekwetsembeni, who has a disability, was impressing to the fact that they, as children with disabilities, they feel excluded in many things that are happening around their communities and schools. So he was basically pleading that they be supported and be included the best way that we can. But I think importantly is to highlight that issues of gender-based violence are one of the prominent issues that children raised during this project. And they impressed that, from the school setting, from the home setting, that they're negatively affected by the gender-based violence that happened, especially that is perpetrated by their fathers towards their mothers. They also spoke, I think, lastly on the issue of how this patriarchy plays out in school. It may seem that there's more that we need to do to actually empower and educate the boy child towards the respect of human rights, and in particular, the respect of the girl child. It seems as though that the boys out there still hold the view that they feel they are entitled to the bodies of the female learners. So the inappropriate touching and many other harassment does take place. So I think briefly, that's what I can say. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Shili. I will also request, because we didn't get a chance to introduce ourselves, and I think it would be a great opportunity that whoever speaks, please introduce yourself and the organization or the individual you're representing, because I don't want to assume everybody's in organization before you take the floor. And thank you for that summary, Mr. Shili. So. Okay, I know COVID is gone, but there's this flu that's going around. So I will encourage that we still use the sanitizer, just so not to spread our flu-ness.
Thank you, Program Director, Honorable Minister for Justice, UNRCO, George Wachira. Thank you for organizing this very, very important discussion. My name is Thembinkosi Dlamini, Executive Director for the Coordinating Assembly of NGOs. Program Director, I'm sorry, I will breach the protocol because I kind of prepared 10 pages. Can I quickly go through? I think as we talk about the right to education and stepping up the needly on the rights of children, especially Article 26, it is important that we remind ourselves the few things that we still need to do, Honorable Minister. First of all, I think it is important to foster a safe and enabling environment to protect children's rights, especially an environment without violence, threats, intimidation, harassment, and persecution. We need to deal with some of the outstanding issues such as corporal punishment, bullying in schools, gangsterism, and the taking of drugs in schools. Secondly, we need to ensure that children are able to freely exercise their rights and carry out their activities of learning without disturbances, especially occasioned by underfunding of education, the absence of school feeding sometimes in some schools, absence of clean and safe drinking water, teaching and learning aids. This is important so that we achieve the equity benchmarks that are required. We need to look at Article 26 and also look at ISESCA Article 2 at the same time, which speaks to the question of progressive realization of rights, and that the state needs to expend all the available resources to ensure that the rights of children are achieved in general. When we look at the statistics in Eswatini, we are being shown a downward trend when it comes to spending in education. In 2016-17, as an example, the spending as a percentage of GDP was sitting at 21%. By 2020-2021, it was 16%. The spend as a total spend, that is overall government budget, it was 7.2% in 2016-2017. By 2020-2021, it was 4.5%, and it is continuing to go down. Importantly, it is very important to understand that there are certain things that are happening in the country that are not helping us in any way achieve the equity benchmarks that are set out in the covenants. Especially whilst there are boys and girls going to school, it seems that the resources are allocated equitably by gender. However, if you look at the allocations to rural schools versus the urban schools, I think that the urban schools are getting more of the resources, and that as you go up the ladder to secondary school, tertiary, more and more money is required from the parents. That means that of the spending that goes to education, the children that comes from the more affluent families, they tend to benefit more because most of the students from the lower quantiles in terms of income ladder, they tend to drop out of school because they are unable to provide the extra resources that are required. So we want to see whether it is possible for the government to start thinking about a way to look at a means-tested system of allowing secondary school children to continue with their education undisturbed because the OVC grant that is there is inadequate. Therefore, the children were unable to afford the top up. They then drop out of the school. This is more so because when we're talking about the needs of children, it's not just the tuition fees. There's also money for uniform, transport to school, meals, sanitary pads and things like that, which tend to be a barrier when it comes to children's continuing attendance in schools. One of the last things that I would like to say, Program Director, is that when we had the unrest in the country last year in June, July, it would seem to me that we were caught unaware. We were unable to protect the children, such that many of them found themselves incarcerated without proper facilities to take care of them through the justice system. So we need the country to be able to think clearly about what needs to be done when we have a crisis on our hands. How do we ensure that we mitigate the risks that are associated with a crisis situation and reduce the impact on children in particular? I thank you.
I think we have a sanitizer in each table, if I'm not mistaken. If you don't, please raise your hand. I will not even attempt to summarize what he said because we were all here when he said it, right? So, yeah.
Thank you, Programs Director, Honorable Minister and UN Resident Coordinator. My name is Nonhlanhla Dlamini, and I'm the Executive Director for SWAGA, Swatini Action Group Against Abuse. My job on itself actually speaks to the violation of children in as far as violence is concerned. I think as a country, we are having a serious problem, Honorable Minister. We take a few steps forward, and then we take more steps backwards. As a result, we are actually at a time where the issue of violation of children's rights is a serious problem, starting from the basic right where children have a right to a name and being registered in a country where they belong. We have quite a number of children that are not at school as we speak. And it is so painful because they have no birth certificate. And I think as a country, we owe it to these children in terms of coming up. I don't know what it will be, but with strategies that would help them to be able to register at a time when their parents are not available. I know that a lot has been done with the mopping exercise. A lot of children have been captured, but we still have quite a number of children that are still not registered up to today. And it's so painful. It's easier to speak about it when it's just there, but it's more difficult when you have to see the child who is so frustrated because age mates are in class, but he or she's not able to go to class just because the parents have failed to provide their certificates, and nothing is being done by government to actually hold these parents accountable. And then having said that, then we also have a serious problem of violence. I don't understand what has gone into the society. People are actually using violence as a weapon to settle scores, and it is so painful. And then we are saying we care about the rights of children. And I ask myself, do we really care? I mean, all of us seated here, do we really care? And if we really care, why should we be having so many children being violated at a very tender age and then having them to grow with that anger that they have? I don't understand why a man will actually sexually assault a 5-year-old child, for goodness sake. I don't even understand why an adult like myself would actually be violated sexually when there are so many people who are willing to offer sex if the person wants sex. So it is really a serious problem, and I think we really need to do something about it. Then coming into education, Eswatini used to be one of the best countries in as far as education is concerned. We have quite a number of people who were educated in this country. But honestly speaking, our education system is falling apart. Children have already been affected by COVID, by political unrest. Even now, this week, we are not sure whether they would be able to write their exams. And we are not doing anything about it. It's just business as usual. And I think we really need to come up with a collective way of addressing this deep-rooted causes that we have in this country. One being the national dialogue. I think it is important, if it's one thing that probably would help us get out of this problem that we're in, let's go for the national dialogue. Can we request, Honorable Minister, we don't know, we don't have the opportunity, or maybe if we can, Ube Lingosa, as probably citizens of this country, we go and speak to His Majesty and actually see if we could not even request the issue dialogue, because we are now living in fear, all of us, and I'm sure including yourself. And it is not nice because you don't know what is going to happen next and when is this going to happen. So if really we could try and make the dialogue, whatever form it may take, but at least to open the table so that we are able to address these issues, so that we are able to restore the Eswatini that we used to have, so that we are able to come back and be a happy nation. Honestly speaking, personally, I'm no longer happy to be Eswatini. I wish I could have an alternative, but I can't because Eswatini, it's all I have. So I think really we need to get into that, because whatever that is happening, it's also affecting our children. And then closing, I know we said we need to be very brief. It's our students who are at tertiary institution. They are being deprived of their right to education. Why? Because they are not afforded scholarships. And some of them actually have to sell their bodies just to make sure they are able to eat. And I don't think it's fair. For us growing up, we knew when you had good grades, you would go to university and you would be guaranteed of scholarships, but not anymore. So I think there really needs to be something. Then you look into the high level of suicide. We used to know that suicide was for the middle-aged men who probably were having financial problems, but now we're having young people. Since the beginning of the year, we have over 17 cases now of children who have committed suicide at tertiary. That's a big number for such a small country, 17 students. So I think we really need to do something to get into the root causes of this problem. We know because some of them, they speak to us as to how we can address this. Then we can comfortably say, as a country, we respect children's rights and we are actually giving them their rights. I thank you.
Thank you, Nhlanhla. Okay, I'm going to take two more hands. Who's the next hand? Him. Okay. So, and then I will check with our esteemed table if they have reactions.
Thank you. My name is Mandisa Zwane Machakata. I am the Surface Country Representative for the Eswatini Country Office. Thank you for all the speakers that have spoken before me, but I would not forgive myself if I didn't bring this issue that's always been close to my heart, the issue of equality of women and being able to pass on citizenship to our children. We as women of Eswatini, many of us still have a problem with passing on citizenship to our children. I am a mother of 3 and I'm married to a Zimbabwean. But because the father still maintains his citizenship, I cannot pass citizenship to my children. This makes it very difficult for me and my children who are born in and raised in Eswatini. Unfortunately, this story is not just my story. It's a story for many women who are in our country who are discriminated or sometimes even harassed. If you want to be able to travel with your children, it's an absolute nightmare. And we find ourselves in a situation where some of us have to resort to finding someone to help you with papers, get back door, yet you are a citizen and a contributing member of the society. We cannot say that we are an equal country as long as citizenship can't be passed by both parents. We cannot say that we're a country that looks out for children's rights if our children can be stateless simply because their parents are from different countries. This is an issue that we've been talking about for many, many years, and we've been hearing that there will be improvement and there will be change, but we are not seeing the change. It's making life difficult for many people in our country, and it leaves our children vulnerable as well, because in essence, I always try to rationalize this. Does that mean that from birth, my country is giving custody of my children to their father simply because he's a foreigner? And I don't think that that's in the best interest of the child. So as we are talking about human rights and all the issues that are affecting children, I would like for us to also remember this issue that there are still many children in our country who are stateless or have no actual citizenship because their parents are from different countries, and something really needs to be done. We see advocacy, we have stories that are being told, and even in the region, we know that there are movements around this to make sure that there's a change. But I'm not seeing the movement as much in my own country. I guess it's a call to say we need help. We need people to stand behind us. We need people to strengthen our voices as Emaswati women who are married to foreigners. Thank you.
I know the theme is education, but as you can see, Honorable Minister, we will not pass out an opportunity to keep what we have in our heads while you are here. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you want mine? Okay. Please remember to sanitize.
Thank you very much. My name is Vusi Matsebula. I come from Swavisa. Swavisa is the Swaziland Massacre Victims and Survivors Association. And we would like to thank the UN for convening such an important forum today. And we honor the presence of the minister in our midst. And there is the temptation to applaud probably our government for all the documentations that have been adopted based on human rights, as has been alluded by our minister. But I would be not doing justice to the victims of the political unrest that has happened last year. As we are in this gathering, we are the victims who have suffered the violence that should be protected by the instruments that have been mentioned by our government. In our organization, although we are still working out, compiling the data, but so far we have come across 388 children who are affected in this violence. Amongst these children, 200 of them are school-going children. 23 of them sustain gunshots wounds, and within them, there are those who were killed. 2 of these children are now confined for life in wheelchairs because they suffered spinal cord injuries. So we are here in this gathering seeking answers. Most of our victims were not in this looting. Most of our victims, they are not even in these political riots. Most of our victims, they were simply from work to home. Some were from home to work. They had no idea what was going on at that particular time when they met this violence. And there has never been anything said to us. no one has visited us. We are on our own. And I am here with a few of our victims. And I would like for a moment to hear their story. Thank you.
Sanbonani.
Sorry, Mrs. I'm still the moderator and I appreciate that you want to have the stories told. We have a small challenge because our minister is going to be leaving us during the break time because she is standing in for other ministers who are out of the country. So we want to make sure that we get as much feedback and from the team before and have if she has a reaction, no pressure, Minister, to some of the issues raised. So can I request that we take 2 more people and then we can round it up and then we can continue with our discussions after the session. So I'll have, wow, see, most of the time I'm conflicted because it's men that want to speak. I'm having nice life problems. It's women who want to speak. Eh? This is really good. So I'll come back to you, Sisi, after we have reactions from others.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator, Your Excellency, UNRC, Honorable Minister. Thank you so much for this opportunity to have this round table. I just want to bring one issue that is related to the rights of education that maybe as a country we need to be looking at this time. Following maybe COVID and also the unrest in June 2021, there is a challenge that has mushroomed that I'm not so sure we have geared up ourselves as a country to addressing. Speakers before me have already mentioned how the unrest affected children, maybe even the education system. But we have a generation that their rights to education has already been affected in terms of the interest. You know, we have our children, some of them have lost, or a majority have lost the interest to go to school to learn. I have had interactions with teachers who are saying they are finding it very difficult to teach our children at school following, you know, the phase of being at home and also coming back. Now they are faced with this uncertainty that is happening in schools, the fear, the intimidation, and everything that is happening around us. I'm just bringing this up to say, what are we going to do as a country? When we're talking about the right to education, we are talking about systems, we are talking about all that we need to do in order to protect the right to education, but we have a generation that already has been affected. Is there anything that we can do? Maybe we need to up the programs for psychological programs, or we need to have counseling in classes at schools. You know, I know in South Africa, they do have in each university a program that is providing counseling. It is very difficult to deal with our children. They are not interested in going to school because they lost time during COVID. And following that, when they were still trying to enjoy their going to school time, then the unrest came. And following the unrest, we have been having this, disturbances that has been happening that has really affected their mindset in staying at school. So I'm just, bringing that up for discussion. Thank you so much.
Your name?
Oh, sorry. I am Sizakele Hlachwayo, the National Director of Women in Law Eswatini. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I would like to appreciate the UN and also our Minister of Justice for actually enabling such a platform to engage on human rights issues in the country, especially on the importance of the right to education. I just want to highlight the issue of lack of investment from our government on the right to education for children and young adults with disabilities. We note that currently we have 2 or 3 schools for children with disability, and even those schools, they are inadequately funded. There's not enough teachers. There's not actually enough infrastructure to actually address the needs of the children with disabilities. So we need to have adequate. You find that most of the young people from rural areas are actually not able to attend the schools because they are far away from the communities where they're based, and that actually opens up to so many vulnerabilities, such as being violated, sexually violated, and in all other forms. And also the lack of infrastructure investment that we keep on seeing in the country. I think one of the speakers highlighted that instead we've seen more and more budget cuts when it comes to investment in education. And that is actually happening mostly in the rural areas, where you find that young children still have to actually walk a long distance in order just to attain education. And that wonder if that even the education that they access, is it good enough to actually improve the life of those children that we say that we have committed ourselves to improve. And also just to highlight the issue of those without birth certificate. It's a dire situation that we have. We have more and more young people or children sitting at home, not attending schools. Some of them even have been, the parents were naturalized in the country, but you find that the education institutions, they turn them back because they have no citizen certificates which allow them to actually access the free primary education. So we need more interventions when it comes to ensuring that every child based in Eswatini has a birth certificate, as per the commitment of the Minister of Justice in eradicating statelessness. Sorry, I am Noktula Mamba, Director of Youth Sustainable Development Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Noktula. And on that note, Vusi, I will pretend like I don't see you. I hope you will realize that I don't really see you. Yes, Honorable Minister, I think you heard everything that was said, and I think it would be a waste of time for me to actually summarize some of the issues, but I will first maybe give the RC to say something if he wants to react, and then hand over to the Minister.
Thank you, Linda. I want to give priority to the Minister, but just to affirm that indeed, since yesterday, the Minister was kind enough to communicate that she has this assignment. She needs to be at 11 o'clock. She informed us well in advance, and we would like to appreciate that she was able to squeeze this in. She's carrying responsibilities, as Linda indicated, of others that are out of the country. And so we want to appreciate that she'll be leaving soon after these comments, and to thank you, Minister, for finding time to do this.
Thank you. May I stand so that I can see, or at least you can see me when I react to the comments. We thank all the contributions. As we know, this is a round table. It's a forum where we all bring our input. And as I said in my remark, the issue of human rights is not just the responsibility of government, it is a responsibility of all of us. So we're here to learn, to hear your views, to share our views, and then in our respective roles that we play, whether you are in civil society, there's also something for you from all the comments here. There's something that you as civil society implement. If you are in government, there's something for us in government to implement. Our development partners, there's also a role for us to play in all of this. So I will not be responding as giving answers, but I will also be maybe share some insights on the comments that have been said, starting with Tembinkosi, I think you have rightly pointed out, you had the numbers in terms of the reduced investment in education by government and your concern on the reduction of the investment. I think when we look at how much government has put in, the highest budget goes to education and it goes to health continuously in the country. That's the biggest chunk of our budget goes to those two. And yes, education is very important. Last year, we came from COVID, the last 2 years actually. So there was also a huge investment in health, but we're taking note of that. And I think in the respective roles where we are, we all have contribution of our development partners who also invest a lot in education, but we are all in agreement that education plays a very critical role in the development of the country. And it is not just for government alone, but we are also implore our development partners to also come in to help us as government, to help civil society, NGOs, because the money should not just come to government, but it should also be shared with other organizations. And I think there are a lot of programs, especially this year. The UN has invested a lot for the youth. The European Union has also invested a lot for the youth. So all of that will also be shared with our NGOs and civil society and government. So the role that I think we can play in our respective areas is that recognizing the importance of education and the promotion of human rights. Let us work together to make sure that Lama resources we invest them properly in the education. If, for example, you're an NGO and you are given funds, maybe the EU gives you funds for the advancement of education. Let us work towards a common purpose to make sure that those funds are invested appropriately in a way that will yield the required results. And I liked your point on the introduction of a means test when it comes to deciding who should get free education, because free education, you'll take a child from, now we want to introduce grade R preschool, right up to university. That's a huge investment. And I don't think there's any country in the world that can provide that as a free right to every citizen. Government would collapse if we were to do that. So there needs to be a balance when it comes to the provision of free education. Let us not just look to government to say government must pay everything from grade 1, grade R. You go to university, we are demanding that government should give you a scholarship or even a grant, free university for all. That is not possible anywhere in the world. So we need to be realistic when it comes to looking at the right to free education. Yes, government plays a very critical role, especially in the lower grades, to make sure that at least everybody gets proper schooling grade 1 to form 5. I think those who are around my age, investor in university. Some of us would not have qualified or had the means to go to university if it wasn't for the government scholarship that we receive. But some people are not even paying back the scholarship. There's a feeling that, no, it's my entitlement. So we need to have, Jehovah, we're saying that my human rights, it's rights, and there are also responsibilities. So that is the message that we need to share continuously amongst ourselves, to say, let us, if you've been given a scholarship, when you finish, you start working, pay back the scholarship so that somebody else can also get an opportunity to go through university. So I like the proposal of introducing a means test. At some point, maybe we even need to go to the lower grades to say, if me civil servant and I can afford to pay for my child, why should I then for free education? If you're able to pay, those parents should be able to pay, so that the children that are really in need should be the children that benefit from the free education. So the means test will discuss that with the Ministry of Education to see what can be done. Other stakeholders have also expressed that we need to introduce the means test. Taking care of our children. I think there's a common view in that after the COVID, the unrest and everything, the children have suffered the most from all of this, and they are still suffering even today. So what we can do as stakeholders working together is that in some instances where children are disturbed from going to school, it's really something that has got nothing to do with a child. So if we can embrace the idea that even if we have differing views, because it starts from home where parents disagree, and then they do what? They use the child to fight each other. And now also as citizens, now if we're not agreeing that we want to go left, someone wants to go right, then we decide what? Let's use children to fight for our objectives. I think that's a very wrong approach. And we have to be honest and candid about it, that let us stop using children as weapons if we disagree on anything as adults. So the children really, there was nothing after COVID. Children should have been going to school smoothly without being interrupted. So as citizens, if we can work together, at least agree that there should be no reason. If you are not agreeing about something, why stop a child from going to school? Why burn a school when children need to be going to school, write exams, you know? So nothing like embrace a logo and make sure that we don't disrupt children from going to school for any reason. Because really children from 0 to 18 years, why should we use those children, get them involved in things that don't concern them? When they are adults, then they participate in whatever way. So if we can at least embrace that, working together as stakeholders to make sure that we don't disrupt children from going to school, especially after events like COVID that were beyond our control, but that has taken 2 years of proper schooling of children. They're having difficulty. A lot of them, we have children, we have mothers, we have children. They're still trying to adjust to going back to a classroom situation. And they need the support of all of us so that they can have proper schooling. First, just to appreciate the work that SWAGA is doing in the protection of human rights and the support of women and children. SWAGA is doing a great job. You've also assisted us at the One Stop Center. You know, those are the kind of things that we appreciate where we work as partners. The Ministry of Justice are making an example, like we have Lama One Stop Center, where it's a center for gender-based violence, victims or survivors, where you go to one roof. You know that in Ikatzen, you'd required to go to the police station first. If you've been violated in whichever way, you have to go and report your case to the police. When you come from the police, you have to go to hospital to get the medical report. After that, you have to go, see a doctor and all of that. So the One Stop Center has put all those resources under one roof. So you just enter one door. There you will find a doctor that will attend to you. There's a police officer that will take your statement. There's somebody who provides you with counseling, and the psychosocial support that you receive under one roof. And we've been able to achieve that because of what? Partnership. And SWAGA was able to give us some funds to help us sustain the working of that one-stop center. So those are the things that we encourage, where we work together as partners to improve the lives of Maswati, especially. So the issues that you raised, Mage, are very important. the right to name and registration. And Magema Chakata also mentioned that a lot of our children, with them foreigners, you know, it's a serious issue, and together with the Ministry of Home Affairs, it's being addressed. I know the process is very slow, but it is a real issue where, because of our constitutional framework, we're not, if you're married to a foreigner, you're not able to transfer citizenship to your child. We hope that the program that the Ministry of Home Affairs has put in place will be able to overcome that barrier. And the mopping exercise that is ongoing to make sure that every child in Eswatini has some form of identification so that the child can be able to attend school. The mopping exercise is ongoing. I know they had to suspend operations because of network issues, but I believe they are back in the communities. And again, there is to support the Ministry of Home Affairs in making sure that those children we are aware of, we assist them to get their papers so that they can attend school, and also just to have those registration papers. But again, in this issue, there's two people that are responsible for bringing a life to earth, right? So how then does a child with a mother and a father, because the child would not have been born if there was no mother and there was no father. Now we are talking about children not having papers. Whose responsibility is that? Is this the fault of government? Is it government's fault? It's the parents. So I liked what you said, to say we are not calling those parents to account. We are not holding them responsible. So maybe we need to have a law to arrest these parents that have children with no papers. Why? And some of them do it because of what I said earlier. We're using children as weapons, which is totally wrong. And then we sit here, instead of talking about important issues, we're talking about the registration of children. It's now a burden for SWAGA, for WILSA, and all the other NGOs present here and individuals present here. Say responsibility, and why, when the parents are there. You know, there are cases where maybe the parents are deceased, that is understandable, but most of the time, children are not registered because Babe has decided that, no, I don't want to pay maintenance for this child, so angifuni igama lami livele esitifiketini salo mntwana. That is totally wrong, and it's not the fault of government. So we need to take ownership, hold these people to account, hold them responsible for not taking responsibility for their children. Because Home Affairs, yes, where there's issues in delay in registration, but the person who's really at fault, who have failed to register their children. Maya Machakata, I think I've highlighted on the important issue that you raised, and yes, we continue to remind each other about the importance of passing on of citizenship. Babe Matsebula, I've noted your concern as a survivor or during the unrest, and I think what we can do, we can have another engagement with yourself. I think there was somebody else you wanted to share about the experiences and the suffering that you went through during the civil unrest. And you, as you pointed out, that some of the victims were not involved in the looting. They were not involved in any political riots. They were just people going home. And you're saying that there's nothing that the government has done to engage those individuals. So I think we can have an engagement with you, Matsebula, on that aspect, as you and the other individuals that went through suffering during the civil unrest. The civil unrest, Nayo, you know, nobody planned for it. We don't know what happened. We just found ourselves in that situation where the country was just on fire. People were burning, looting. Yes, there are other responsible. Ngoba a shop will not burn without anybody lighting fire to burn that. But yes, you are correct, Matebola, in that in that process, there are a lot of Maswati, innocent Maswati that suffered. There are business people that lost their businesses, livelihoods, lives were lost. And again, individuals that were responsible for that. So we need to work together as a Maswati to make sure, first of all, that we never go through that kind of experience. And secondly, to go through a period where we address the issues as a Maswati, working together to make sure that we restore what we know about Eswatini being a peaceful country. The issue of national dialogue, as the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, in his recent statements, His Majesty the King, the Prime Minister, government is committed to having dialogue. But the issue is everybody is afraid, like you're saying. You talk, tomorrow your house has been burnt down. You say something, so how are we going to sit and have an honest dialogue? If you say something, Bayakshisela, you say something, something happens to you, we need to arrive to a point where we are able to put aside so that we can have a conducive environment for us, Maswati. Sihlale phasi. This country has always been a country of dialogue. We arrived at our constitution, there was vuselas and also economic vusela, economic at grassroots level. Culture yet for itsi, we don't sit decide around the table and say we are having a dialogue. No, Gogo Ekaya needs to be part of that conversation. Young people need to be part of the conversation. Bomage, Bobabe, we need to make sure that when we have dialogue, everybody is able to participate without fear. So it's important that we arrive to a point where when we do have the dialogue, Song is comfortable that you are going, like in this room, we're all feeling free, Angit, to engage. We're feeling free to speak. But maybe somebody else wants to say something, but they are not sure, can I say this in the presence of A, B, because maybe if I do so, it won't be welcome. Now we want to be able to hold a dialogue, to share our views and ideas, because we all are a Maswati, we all want to be able to participate in the future of the country. So I know it's a dicey situation. I would say, maybe if we hold the dialogue, this is going to stop. But sikhulumisana njani nangabe lo munye uyesaba khuluma, because utawuthi yakhuluma umqondo avuke kusasa sebamshisele or sekwendeke something really bad to those individuals. So again, it's just to plead with all of us to say, we have to all own it and work together to make sure that we retain a peaceful country. Someone said, I think it's your house, but it's even worse in other countries, you know, countries that have gone through civil war, because you know, with armed groups, conflicts, all of that. Sometimes in other countries, it gets to a full-blown civil war. We don't want to be in that kind of situation. Today, we're talking about internally displaced people. We're talking about refugees. You know, I meet with some of the refugees, doctors, lawyers, graduates, teachers. They've left their country. Miles, kilometers and kilometers, just to find a place of safety. If you look around our neighbors, South Africa, they have their challenges. There are brothers and sisters from other countries, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, that have gone to South Africa. South Africans are feeling, oh, it's too much of a burden. We are in Mozambique, we've hosted a lot of Mozambicans as a Maswati. we know the situation in their country for many years. So kungaba kuhle lokuthi we avoid getting to that position because tawubaleka siyephi. This is our home tree. Let's work together to retain the peace. Sihlale phasi sikhulumisane nakhona lesingabonisani ngako. Singasebenzisi umlilo to solve our problems. Singasebenzisi violence to talk to each other because le violence lesiyibonako. 5-year-old, 5-month-old baby being violated, 10-year-old, 15, 20, 50-year-old. Kusho lokuthi we are using a culture of violence to talk to each other. And that is what we then see at a national level to say, oh, as van, sengdakshisel, ekaya, oh, as van, ndakshai. You know, we need to deal with those issues at a primary level in our homes. You know, singabafundzisi bantfwana kulwa ngala bantfwana, because if we do that to the children, silwa ngabo. Nabo batawukhula bathi ukuthi the only way to talk to somebody else is through what? Violence. And then we're talking about gender-based violence because we have everything. It's not going to work. So all of us have a responsibility to make sure that we build this country to be a better country. Sizagele Wilsa, I think I've covered your points on the children and what we can do. This roundtable must come up with solutions on what we can do to help our children for counseling nagogonge so that they can continue with their education. And Noktula, you said that the lack of investment in children, we agree, in especially Izabaye children with disability. I think we still have a lot of room there to make sure that children living with any form of disability are given priority, are given the right environment to live and work and be better citizens. So we're taking that as a point, and we'll work together as partners to make sure that we continue to invest in children living with disabilities. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you very much, everyone.
I'm hoping, Honorable Minister, that you also responded to some of the issues that were going to come up that were in other people's heads that were not yet articulated, because it was a very comprehensive, it wasn't a response, it was a reaction, because we are not in a confrontational or ask me something. So with that, can I ask that we take our break and have our tea as we allow the minister to leave. I know that they've already said they are waiting for you, but I don't know if it's still possible to have one picture with the minister before she zooms out, or it's too late. Sorry, you guys, next round table. Your Excellency, we need another one. Thank you, Minister. We can go for tea, it's okay. I know you're sad that she's leaving, but it's okay. I will write on the message of what is said after she leaves. The head, the key director says you have 15 minutes to have your tea and coffee.